Iowa, Washington, under the radar important game this week in the Big Ten. Full Big Ten Week 7 picks with Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions. Nittany Lions joining me here on the show. One of these teams is going to have 2 losses in conference play after Saturday. Iowa at home, Kinnick Stadium. Washington on the road following the win against Michigan, where they beat the number 10 team in the country. First ever top 10 win for Jedd Fisch as a head coach. That's a big deal. They were at home. 2 reasons I like the Hawkeyes here, Zach. Number 1, Iowa's offense is capable. It's not great, but it is capable. They went on the road to Minnesota, scored more points than USC's offense did. So at the very least, it's better than it used to be. They're at home, and I think this is an emotional letdown spot for Washington after catapulting their season forward. Give me the Hawkeyes. Low-scoring game, though, 24-20.
Yeah, I agree with you there. There's also, yes, the travel element. I'm not saying that the travel, when I pick Penn State, I'm not saying the travel element doesn't affect them. I'm not saying that it doesn't affect them, but, and that's why I have, USC keeping that game close there. But to talk about Washington and Iowa specifically, Washington's not only, I agree with you, the first thing I'm thinking, emotional letdown, right? That's an emotional win at home against a Michigan team that you lost to in the national title game. Okay, now you got to turn around. You got to hop on the plane. You got to go to Iowa, and then you're playing this game at 12 Eastern time. So that's kind of a double whammy there. That there's no juice here with the Iowa Hawkeyes, and then you have to play a game at 9 a.m. your time. So and that's the thing. I think Washington's a really quality team. It would not surprise me if they prove me wrong and prove yourself wrong and win this game, because I think they're going to continue to get better. They're going day by day. This is a very talented team that just needs a little bit of chemistry. Once they get chemistry, they are a dangerous. Hopefully, if they were to win out and sneak into the playoff and sneak in as an underrated team at 10-2, I could see them upsetting a higher seed in that case. But they would have to beat Iowa. I think Iowa matches up well enough in this case to win the game. Two defensive teams to this point. I just don't know if this game was maybe a little later in the season and Washington was a little more put together, then I'd think otherwise. But right now, in the middle of October, middle of November, different story. And that's why Penn State Washington could be an interesting one down the road.
Top 3 matchup in Eugene, Oregon, hosting Ohio State. College game day game. Josh Pate is there with, I don't remember what the name of the tour is off the top of my head, but it is, everybody's out there. A lot of eyeballs are going to be on Eugene against my Ducks. I've got Oregon winning 27-23. This, again, coin flip, go either way sort of game. Who's got the ball last? Who makes a play late? Who turns the ball over less? It feels like one of those games to me. And I lean with the home teams in these spots. And again, long road trip. People might get tired of hearing that. It's a very real thing for football teams. Oregon wins 27-23.
Yeah, jet lag is a very real thing, and these aren't professionals. They're still, even though I know college football's trending away from that, Spencer, there's still an element of amateurism. So, but Ohio State is built differently. There were a lot of NFL caliber players that should have went to the draft, but did not, because we are in the age of NIL. It's not that Oregon's not a top 5 team. I just think Ohio State has enough to offset the travel conditions. They have the 2 running back system in a Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson. I don't like that game for Penn State at this point in time. I don't like that game for Oregon. I think Ohio State's defense isn't getting enough credit. I'm glad that you have it a little bit lower scoring. Oregon has not shown enough to me in terms of, again, you had the scare against Idaho. You had the scare against Boise State. Now, Ashton Jeanty is a very good,
absurd,
very good. Yes,
that guy's really good.
I'm underrating him just by saying very good in the same sentences as Ashton Jeanty. But I like what Ohio State can do as a collective football team. I don't know that Oregon's defense is good enough to get Ohio State off of the football field, and they'll be able to sustain those long 10, 12, 15 play drives. Figure out who's going to take the football. Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, and then you got to stop Emeka Ibuka and that true freshman, actually, and
Jeremiah Smith. An 18-year-old, very different from the 17-year-old in Tuscaloosa. Wildly different, some would say.
I'll take the Buckeyes here. I'll take the Buckeyes, and I think they win by at least something along the lines of 31-21.
I am not exclusively picking home teams this week, but it's called home field advantage for a reason. Minnesota goes to UCLA. Purdue goes to Illinois. I don't know if the Boilermakers or the Bruins are going to win another football game combined this year. Like the over-under combined win total for those two teams for the rest of the season is probably 1.5. And I think I would take the under. I mean, I think Minnesota goes into the Rose Bowl and keeps the good times rolling against UCLA. I don't think Purdue can upset Illinois.
See that? Okay, so I agree with you with Purdue and Illinois. Illinois is a more of a complete football team. Penn State showed some weaknesses there, but Purdue's just, I don't know what's wrong with them. I thought Hudson Card.
Lots of things are wrong with Purdue.
I haven't seen enough of Purdue, but I know confidently in what I've seen of Illinois and researching them when they played Penn State that that's a capable football team. That's a top 20 football team, and they should be able to roll at home. UCLA is interesting because they've gone to Hawaii. They've gone to LSU. They've played Oregon. They've played Penn State. They are so battle-tested. Same thing that we're applying to Washington, Spencer. Why can't we apply that to Minnesota? That there's an emotional letdown here. And then you got to travel to the Rose Bowl that's probably going to be, half empty? Maybe you might get a quarter of fans to show up. The Bruins aren't exactly known
I think if they fill half of that stadium, they'll be doing very well.
Okay, so, and what's the excitement there? This game could finish around after midnight, right? 12:30 in the morning. Minnesota's going to be exhausted. UCLA, I saw some things. And talking to Zach Yoxsimer of Locked On UCLA, this would be a better football team if the offense could help them out. Well, Eric Bieniemy, his system, they just have to get used to it. I like whatever quarterback they go with, whether it's Ethan Garbers or now Justin Martin, who actually showed something against Penn State. That was a 12 p.m., 9 a.m. kickoff for them, and they played a decent football game. Give me the Bruins to beat Minnesota with that emotional letdown. I think UCLA wins.
Maybe the only man in America brave enough to pick UCLA to win a football game is Zach Seyko, and I respect it. Last two games in the Big Ten, who's more likely to pull a road upset? Northwestern at Maryland, couple teams looking for their first conference win, or Wisconsin at Rutgers in Piscataway?
I just don't think Wisconsin has enough between losing the starting quarterback, top running back. They still have a relatively good defense, but now they don't have that complementary football to help out that defense. I think Rutgers, they got some defensive players back from injury. That certainly helps getting them acclimated and back up to game speed. I like what I've seen from Rutgers. They did beat that Washington team at home. I'm going to take Rutgers here at home. Same thing with Maryland. I think Maryland's just more of a complete football team. So if Maryland wants to speed things up and go a little more up-tempo on offense, I can't see Northwestern keeping up with them. They might get some defensive stops here and there, but eventually your offense has to be able to sustain drives, give your defense a break. I'm bringing up complementary football, Spencer, because it's so important, and Northwestern just doesn't do that. Maryland, to an extent, does. They're more of a complete football team, even though they're not good, great, or elite. But I like them at 7-5, 8-4 team. Northwestern just doesn't scream that to me. So give me the Terrapins.
I'll go Maryland wins, but a Northwestern cover. I think Rutgers wins and covers at home. Zach Seyko, Locked On Nittany Lions. Appreciate it, my man.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on the show, Spencer. Anytime.
Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.